As I've listened to the stories of thousands of women of all ages, in all kinds of stages, through the years, I've kept their stories locked in the vault of my heart. I feel as if they've been walking around with me all through these years. They've bothered me, they've prodded me, and sometimes kept me up at night. Ultimately, they've increased my passion to reframe and reimagine the powerful positions of mother and matriarch within the family system. I'm a problem solver, so I set out to find a way to perhaps change the trajectory of this silent and sad scenario about a dynamic yet untapped source of potential and purpose sitting in our homes and churches. It is time to come to the table, Heartlifters, and unleash the power of maternal presence into the world. Welcome to Mothering for the Ages, our 2025 theme here on today's Heartlift. I'm Janelle. I am your guide here on this heartlifting journey. I invite you to grab a pen, a journal, and a cup of something really delicious. May today's conversation give you clarity, courage, and a revived sense of camaraderie. You see, you're not on this journey alone. We are unified as Heartlifters and committed to bringing change into the world, one heart at a time. Hello and welcome to today's Heartlift with Janelle. I'm Janelle. I am your guide for today's conversation. We have with us today someone I've really wanted to talk to, Jill A. Stoddard. She has written Be Mighty, a women's liberation from anxiety, worry, and stress using mindfulness and acceptance. This year, as you know, we have dedicated our time here on the podcast, on Heartlift Central Substack, on our new Today's Heartlift with Janelle on our Facebook group. Connect, please. All of those places. Just go to my website. You will see how to connect. But I've wanted to give you, mamas, and all of us grandmas, the understanding of all the different modalities that are out there to help us become emotionally and mentally, relationally, spiritually healthy. And so today, Jill is bringing to the table a much needed conversation on the core concepts of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. You may have heard it talked about as ACT. So once again, these core concepts of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, are a very popular modality used by many, many counselors, therapists, coaches in their work. I have used it. I love the simplicity of it. And I just love so many things about it. One being that it helps us really learn and train ourselves to be psychologically flexible. Whew. If we can do this, I think that our lives and how we move through our lives will increase our capacity to be wholehearted and healthy human beings, and therefore lead our families, guide our children, no matter what age they are, into healthy emotional health themselves. She is also going to show us how to cultivate might, M-I-G-H-T, as the title of her book, Be Mighty, through mindfulness. I just really love it. So I think you really might need a journal, a pen, and a cup of something delicious, because Jill brings so much to the table today. Okay, you ready? Let's welcome Jill. Oh my goodness, Jill. Yes, you're finally here, and I am just so thrilled to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for carving out time from a life with an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Of course, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This is my favorite thing, is to nerd out about all things psychology and mental health. So.
Mine too, which is so strange and so weird, but I do. I love it. eased out of 13 years of private practice myself. My husband retired and I was doing my practice in my home. And yeah, it was just time to move forward.
Yeah.
So, but today you have two incredible books, many more, but two. This Be Mighty, A Woman's Liberation, which I love that word, from anxiety, worry, and stress using mindfulness and acceptance. And then your newest, Imposter Syndrome. So, as I said before we started, this is a tough call to choose between the two because I definitely know so many of us have imposter syndrome. But I really wanted to dial back a bit and go to Be Mighty, your earlier
Yeah.
book, because you speak of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. And
Hmm.
I have introduced so many psychological uh, theories and therapeutic practices on the show. That was initially why I started it. And yet I've never talked about ACT. And so
Ooh.
in my research, you showed up and I thought, well, let me just see if I can get Jill on the show. And you said, yes,
And
can't believe it.
here I am.
This year, as I said, we're really looking at the mothering part of our lives, moving from mothering to matriarchy, but just being the healthiest mamas we can be emotionally and mentally and physically, of course, relationally. What is acceptance and commitment therapy and what drew you to it
Sure.
and kept you in it these several decades?
These many years.
Many,
Yes.
many
Well,
years.
I love that we're talking about Be Mighty. It's a perfect book to honor moms because it's specifically for women
Yes.
who are struggling with anxiety, worry, and stress, and what moms don't struggle
Which
with those things at
moms
some point,
don't?
right?
Yes.
So ACT is a therapy like newer-ish as far as therapy goes, but it's been
Mhm.
around for a few decades at this point. And it really has one primary goal. And the goal is psychological flexibility. And what
Oh.
psychological flexibility is our ability to be in this present moment, because it's the only one that we've got,
Mhm.
aware of and open to all of our internal experiences. So that's thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, urges. So we know what we're experiencing. We are open to it. We are allowing it. We are expanding. So we're not doing anything to avoid or suppress or escape. And then we're making conscious, deliberate decisions about how to show up, what to do or what not to
Mm.
do. And we're basing that on our deeply held personal values, or what I just call the me that we want to be. So, like the
Oh, I
opposite
love
of
that.
that,
Mm.
psychological inflexibility is what you might think of when you're on autopilot, when
Mhm.
your inner critic or your fear is dictating your choices, even if those choices that while that might give you some relief in the moment to avoid something scary, it may not be consistent with the person you want to be or the life that you want to live. And so that would be the psychological inflexibility. And we're trying to move people to a place of
Mhm.
cultivating more flexibility. So as long as you're helping clients build psychological flexibility, you're doing ACT.
Hmm. I've never heard it coined. I mean, this is the thing. I say this all the time here and in my life and in my therapy room when I was in that is there is just so much to learn. There are so many theories, there are so many practices, so many still being brought into the world to this day. And so the term psychological flexibility, I just don't remember it coming across my path. It probably did in my master's study, but you learn so much in a short amount of time. So I think that's what is most critical today to bring to all of us is understanding what that really is. You have just said it so well, but maybe break it down even more that if I'm moving through my day with psychological flexibility as opposed to inflexibility, what might those differences look like in
Mm-hmm.
my day? I'm a mama of young children. I'm a grandmother who's exhausted with this beautiful blessing of five grandchildren that live all over the world. That's my story. And flying here, flying there, flying here, flying there. Woo, one can get very inflexible,
Mm-hmm.
especially when a lot of voices are coming at you, from different areas. So what might it look like,
Yeah.
Jill?
Well, it to put it really simply, I mean, I think of it as kind of having three main parts. First and foremost is identifying what your values even are.
I
And
love
so
this.
values are partly what you're doing, but more importantly, they're how you're doing it. So for example, if we go with this kind of family example,
Mhm.
so family is a domain. It's not a value. Some people will say, I value family, but really this is a value domain. So
Okay.
under that domain of family, what are you doing? So let's say I decide as a mom, gosh, I'm feeling a little disconnected from the family. I'm going to start doing Sunday dinner and game night where we can all get
Mm.
together. Okay. So this is under that domain of family. It's an action that I'm taking that's in line with this sort of value domain. But if I'm showing up to that night and I'm scrolling through my phone the whole time, that's not
Ah,
values. That's not
right.
values, right? So it's not just what you're doing. It's
Hmm.
how you're doing it. So that means your values are really about the qualities you embody. So I want to be
Yeah.
present,
Hmm.
playful, loving, affectionate,
Connected.
kind, respectful, that kind of thing. Connected, yes. So that's an interesting one. This is where
Oh,
things
good.
get a little, we'll get into the real nitty gritty here.
I
So,
love it.
what values, I just told you what values are. Here's what
Mhm.
they are not. Values are not feelings because we can't control
Ah,
our feelings. So I'll have clients say, oh, I really value being calm. Well, good luck with that. Because sometimes we're just not calm as much as we would
no.
like to be. And so values really have to be something you can actually control. And the only thing, whether
Ah,
we want to admit it or not, the only thing we really control is our hands and our feet and our mouth.
yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
So they can't be feelings.
Okay.
Um, they are also not about how others treat us. So some people might say, I really value being respected. Well, you
Yeah.
can act in ways that make that more likely. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, that's really up to another person. I
Yes.
value belonging. Same thing. You can act in ways that make it more likely others include you, but at the end of the day, it's not really up to you. And then
Hmm.
finally, they're also not outcomes because there are a lot of things that go into an outcome that we don't control. So I let it go. When I have clients who say they value connection, I'm like, okay, but I'm going to make this one little caveat, which is similar to belonging or respect. You can do all the right things to make connection likely, but like, when you go out to coffee with a new person and the chemistry just isn't
It's not
there,
there.
and you just don't click, or if you're dating, you might date
Mm.
10 people and they're not bad guys, they're just not your guy or your
Hmm.
girl.
Hmm.
And so that's something to keep in mind is it
It's
has to
good.
be something that you can actually control. So I'm doing game night and I'm going to show up and be present and playful and loving and all of these kinds of things. Okay, so
Hmm.
that's kind of step 1. What are my values? Who is the me that I want to be? Now,
Okay.
what's getting in the way of that? So in this example, the urge to check my phone if it's dinging and danging might be an obstacle. My mind, that sense of urgency, that
Yeah.
anxiety that
Tyranny
shows
of
up.
urgency. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so step 2 would be, it's not really in steps, but I'm just trying to break it down to make it easy,
It's really helpful. Thank you.
would be awareness of what you're thinking
Mm.
and feeling. So you got to know that you're having these thoughts and feelings to even do
Mm-hmm.
anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's essentially the way it's kind of different from some other therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy is instead of us trying to control or change our thoughts and feelings, we're changing our relationship to them.
This
So
is
if
what I
I'm
love.
having,
This is
yeah,
it.
right?
This is the bells and the whistles to me is right here.
I agree. And what clients will say is, "Oh, it's such a relief because I've tried so hard to change
Mhm.
my thoughts. I've tried so
Oh,
hard to change my feelings and I can't do it. So now I'm anxious and I feel like a failure." And
yes.
so there's like this
So
freedom
true.
and empowerment
Yeah.
that comes with changing
Liberation.
your liberation. Exactly. That's why it's in the title of the book.
Yes.
So what that looks like is willingness, or it's the A in ACT. It's acceptance, the
Mhm.
acceptance of acceptance commitment therapy. And the way that I think the easiest way to understand what that means is it's getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's it. It's
Yeah.
willingness. I mean, think how many choices we make
Mm.
because we don't want to feel a feeling. And if
Hmm.
I could wave a magic wand and make everybody able to feel whatever feeling happens to show up, think of all the things you would do or not do. You would
Yes.
take on opportunities you've been shying away
Hmm.
from. You'd stop snapping at people. You'd have difficult conversations that you don't want to have. Your
Yeah.
relationships would change. So it's getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Now,
So
that is
good.
easier said than done, of course.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
this is something that I practice with clients, kind of like, the way you would train for a marathon. If you've never run, you wouldn't go run 26.2, you'd
No,
jog around the block. So,
correct.
like, for example, we can do this right now. Your listeners can do it as long as
Oh,
they're not
good.
driving their car. Just fold your hands the way that feels natural and comfortable and notice how it feels. And now switch it so your fingers are all one over. Okay, now notice how that feels. So this is like
So
the funny
awkward.
feeling way.
Hmm.
Now, especially notice how you want to let go, how you want to switch back, because
I'm
that's what
clinging.
we respond to, right?
Hmm.
Or that you're clinging.
Yeah, I'm
And
like,
so can you notice and open and breathe? And when I do a lot of public speaking, teaching and
you do.
training type
Hmm.
stuff, and so I'll practice this or something else with my audience, and then I have them repeat this mantra after me, which is basically, this is uncomfortable. Do you want to repeat it after me,
I
or do you want me
do.
to just go through it?
No,
Okay,
I want
this
to.
is uncomfortable,
This is uncomfortable,
but it's just a feeling.
but it's just a feeling.
It is not dangerous.
It is not dangerous.
It is temporary,
It is temporary.
and I can handle it.
And I can handle it.
Right? And so there are
Wow.
loads of ways that we can practice this. So
Mm,
for myself, you had
mm.
asked me in the beginning, and I didn't answer your question, how I got into ACT.
Yeah.
And it was when I was in graduate school. There
Mm.
were two psychologists doing a study, and they were using clients in the anxiety clinic that I worked in, and I became one of the therapists on their study. And I just fell head over heels in love because it resonated so much with me.
Yeah.
Wait, values? Wait, getting comfortable being uncomfortable? Oh, I just lost my train of thought about
Well,
thousands of
welcome
ways
to
that you
the
could. Oh,
club.
I know. Okay.
Yes.
So even though I know this is the like 52-year-old
It's
hormones making me
no,
not be
it's
able to
because
think
you have
anymore.
so much to offer.
Oh, I love that reframe.
Thank you.
So I have been doing this in my own life for, I mean, that was probably 2001-ish. So how over 20
Wow.
years.
Mm-hmm.
If I have cash, like anyone does, I want it to be all facing the same way in
Oh, yes.
denominational order.
There we
You
go.
will never, ever find it that way in my wallet because I practice being uncomfortable with little things
Oh.
all the time. So the cashier gives me my cash and it's all out of order and messy, and I shove it in my wallet and I don't like it. And I really want to switch it. And I open and I breathe and I allow. And I do that with all sorts of things.
Wow, that's so
So
good.
what I encourage is for people to look for
Oh, you
opportunities
see my shoulders
to do.
just like,
Yes.
woo.
Sit, next time you take a shower, just make it a little too hot or a little too cold for a little bit and
Hmm.
open and, and if your shoulders are up, bring your shoulders down, like open, be receptive, notice the experience without doing anything to resist that
Mm.
experience. So that's the idea. And then the other piece,
Wow.
because I had said it's kind of three pieces. The
Mm-hmm.
other piece is what you do with your thoughts. So the
Yes.
getting comfortable being uncomfortable is your feelings, sensations, emotions, etc. And then it's your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. What do we do when that inner critic comes up? That catastrophizer shows up telling you all the
Oh,
terrible things that are going to happen.
Little Miss Histrionic.
All of
Yes.
that, right? And then the idea there, again, instead of battling to try to change the thought. Now, listen, if you can change the thoughts and that works to help you move forward
Yes.
with your values, great, go for it. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the thoughts that are in the like, I'm not good enough
Mm-hmm.
realm, those deeper kind of core beliefs,
The
those are
imposter
pretty
syndrome
resistant to
ones.
the
Yeah, that
imposter
right,
thoughts.
right.
They're quite resistant to change for various
Mm-hmm.
reasons. And so in that case, again, we change our relationship to them. And that really looks like taking them less seriously, taking them as what they are, which is just sounds and syllables, not facts. And so getting some distance, being able to observe them as what they are. And then in that space, really choosing, if I listen to this thought, is it going to help me be the me I want to be? Is it going to help me
Mm.
cultivate the life I want to live or not? And if not, can I have these thoughts and still choose to do what my values tell me? So that might
Yes.
mean what I'm doing in the presence of difficult thoughts and discomfort, doing it in the presence
Antagonist.
of pain.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Opposing thoughts. Yeah. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Like the naysayer in the brain,
All of
you'll
it.
you'll
Yes.
never do that. I think that's the hardest tension for me, and that's why I do love the simplicity of ACT and the fact
Yeah.
that you start with values first So I have a great values chart I'll put on our show notes. If you have an even better one that you use, I'd love for you to send that to me. Like I just identified connection as
Yeah.
a value and it's not, it's a feeling.
Well, I
You
mean,
know
it
what I
can
mean?
be
It,
as long as you've got as long as you have the caveat.
I know I get that though. Or family. I value family. I mean, I would have said that to you. Like what, if you said,
Hmm.
what do you value? Well, I value family. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's great. That's an umbrella,
Right.
but I really love how you broke that
And
down.
that's not wrong.
No, no.
This is just
Hmm.
how we think about it in act. There are
Yes.
plenty of people that would say
Hmm.
I value family, and that's fine, right?
Yeah,
And
we're
if that's
talking about a theory.
useful to
Correct.
people to
Hmm.
help them get moving in the directions that matter to them, then that's perfectly fine. We don't have
Of
to get,
course.
like picky about that kind of
Oh, no, no,
language.
no. But I love this language you're giving me because even
Yeah.
a few minutes ago when you were walking us through that exercise, I felt what the very last thing you said was this,
Do I want to listen to this thought or not? Is listening going to move me in the directions that
I can
matter?
handle this.
Oh, I can when we did the hand folding.
Yes.
Yes, yes, I can handle it. And I do want to say, saying this is just a feeling, that's not meant to be invalidating.
Oh,
Obviously, if you're
no.
like having a panic attack, that's
Hmm.
really hard. And it is just a feeling, and
Hmm.
it isn't going to hurt you, and it is temporary, and
Hmm.
you can handle it. And so it's just reminding yourself of these things you already know.
Hmm.
And this is why I keep my money all messed up in my wallet, because we have to practice all the time. Because if you don't practice and then you think you're going to be able to do this when you're having a panic attack, good luck. It's not going to happen, right?
Well, I'm just laughing because my money is in order in my wallet. I just got back from a, trip to South America, so I made sure I got it all ordered. And I'm laughing because I would care more, I think, about a cashier or someone waiting on me if my wallet was all out of order. I would not care. My care would be that that person's going to judge me because that's one of my problems in my life, that I've been judged my whole life in front of.
So, and then there's the awareness. So,
And then,
that's probably
right.
one of your buttons.
Yes.
And so when that fear shows up and you engage in actions that are being driven by that fear and those thoughts, they're going to judge me. I feel scared. Is that moving you in the direction of your values or not? And often what that looks like is people pleasing or
Oh,
avoiding
yes.
certain social
Mhm.
situations that then results in burnout or resentment. And so it's really looking at like, what is the function of our behavior? Because it works or we wouldn't do it, right?
Mhm.
Like procrastination, for example, we can
Mhm.
all agree, probably not helpful. We've all done it. Well, in
Mhm.
the moment you give yourself permission to put something off, what do you get? Relief. It works or
Relief.
we wouldn't do it. But then tomorrow you have the same amount to do, less
Mhm.
time to do it. So now you're doubly stressed, right? And
Correct.
so it's understanding what is the function of this behavior because it works or you wouldn't do it.
Love that.
And then what is the cost? If it has no cost, it's fine. Right? Like
Mhm.
when I go to yoga, it makes me feel better.
Mhm.
Technically the definition of avoidance and act is really anything you do to change the way you feel, anything you do to control how you
Yes.
feel. And so that changes how I feel, but I can afford the classes. It's not taking so much time that it's pulling me away from other things that are important. Now, if I was so unwilling to feel anxious that I was going to yoga, 4 hours a day, and the only time I went was the only time I had to spend with my children, and spending time with my children matters to
Yes.
me, now it has a cost. So you're sort of
Now it
always
has a cost.
asking, like, what is
Mhm.
this behavior in the service of? Is it avoidance?
Oof.
And if it is, does it have a cost? If not, it's probably fine. But if it does, what do I want to be doing differently? And what am I willing to feel? Because I may need to do whatever that thing is
That's so
in the
good.
presence of discomfort.
Jill, that is so good. I really promise Heartlifters, I'm going to break that down, what Jill just said, because it's worth everything. I'm sure it's in Be Mighty. I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
It's
So
in all my books. It's all
it's
I
all,
write about
yeah,
because I
it's,
feel so
yes.
passionately about
Yeah,
how
I can
powerful and
tell.
effective it is. Yeah.
Yes. I am an avoider. Let me just say, I have avoidant attachment. I've worked my last few years on earning my secure attachment, came from an alcoholic home. Okay. So I think that's why I was also drawn to your work because a big part of ACT is, like you said, having psychological flexibility, not punishing myself because I avoid, which trust me, I have punished myself a lot. And I know a lot of my heart lifters do too. We're very high functioning. So we say that's how we would identify
Yeah.
ourselves, pushing through, pushing through. I mean, we have pushed through traumatic childhoods, to get to where we are. Bravo. But I don't really want to push through anymore. I really want to be my real me. Like you're saying, I want to be true to me. When I first heard you say that, I went, well, I still don't know if I know who that me is. I'm still trying to understand who that true me is, because so many things were put on me in my life, names and labels and things like that. So I love that that's a driving, beautiful, not a driving in a bad way, but a beautiful river through your work
Yeah.
of, am I staying true
Well,
to me? No, I'm not staying true to me if I avoid conflict. I'm not staying true
right.
to me if I go to yoga 5 times a week for 8 hours.
Right.
I'm not true to me, because true to me is a person that wants to look in the mirror and go, I love you, girl. You're doing good.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that a good way to frame
Yeah,
it?
and I would say, we don't need to figure out like who am I in a big global way, like I'm always going to show up at this person. It really is just about who's the me I want to be in this one moment.
Love
And even
this.
though our values don't really change, the ones we
Mhm.
choose to prioritize may depend on context.
Yeah. Okay.
And you gave the example of conflict avoidance. So, you may, if you're talking about like with one of your adult children or with your
Yes,
partner,
I sure
you may
am.
not, you don't want to avoid conflict because that relationship is
Oh.
important and it's
Hmm.
important to work through those things. But if you're in a grocery store and a stranger is being a jerk, that might be a time that you do choose to avoid
Yeah.
conflict. But that doesn't mean it's all avoidance. There can be
Hmm.
values inherent in maybe in that moment you're prioritizing safety,
Yes.
boundaries, self-preservation, this kind of thing. And that's okay too. The point is like choice with a capital C. It's
Yeah.
not just running for the hills on autopilot all the time. It's
Hmm.
really getting clear on like, who's the me I want to be in this particular moment.
Mm.
And I love if you think about the word moment, like picture how it's spelled. The word me is right in the middle of that word.
Yes,
So
it
you can
is.
imagine the word moment with the word me in the middle
Moment.
of it. Like who is, and the word mom is also in
It
that moment. So like,
is. I
who's the
love
mom
this.
I want to be in this moment? Who's the
Ah,
me I want to be in this moment?
so good, Jill.
Yeah.
Jill,
And
this is
then
so
show up
good.
that way. I
Yes.
mean, it's easier said than done. Sometimes that's
Oh,
a very difficult thing to do,
that's
but
why we're here. That's why
yeah.
we love that you sat down and said yes to us, because you are really, really helping us. You're helping me so very much. I do want to ask if you would move into the imposter syndrome book for just a moment,
Sure.
because before we hit record, you told me that you go deeper in that book about types of avoiders.
Oh,
And as
yes.
much as I cringed and said, I don't think I want to take that quiz and find out what kind of avoider, I really do want to know, because the real me wants to be a whole me, a very, authentic me.
Right.
I want it more in my life than ever. And so, can you go through those? Can you pick
Sure.
up the
Yeah.
book? If
That's
okay.
my top value too, by the way, Janelle, is like authenticity. I
Oh,
really want to show up as someone that, like what you see is what you get, and you
yeah.
can trust that what is coming out of my mouth is consistent with what's in my brain. And
Hmm. And
so
heart.
yeah, I
Yes.
like, yes, exactly. Like that
Hmm.
resonates a lot with me.
Thank you.
So yeah, so in Imposter No More, and by the way, I go into a bit of detail about how we really should not be calling it a syndrome because it is a very normal experience and it is not a disorder, a disease, or a pathology. In fact, I just put up a little video series on LinkedIn about all the
Yes.
reasons not to call it imposter syndrome.
Okay, I will
Um,
put that link in the
so
show
we're
notes,
rebranding it.
because
Yeah.
rebranded.
Imposter. I mean,
Yes.
actually, going back, what it was originally called was the imposter phenomenon. And it was thought to only occur in high
Oh,
achieving women. And then our culture in the late 70s decided, oh, well, if it's happening to girls, it must be a
boys
syndrome. So
too.
there's
Oh,
no, it
oh.
does occur with boys too. But initially they thought it was only girls, only
Mm.
women.
Mm.
And so they quickly labeled it a syndrome. So there's sexism baked into that. And then
Uh-huh.
there's various other reasons too. So anyway, but so I identified I've been an anxiety specialist for many years. And, that is where we see a lot of avoidance with anxiety and
Mhm.
fear.
Yeah.
And some colleagues and I kind of got together and came up with like every specific version of avoidance we could think of, like
Oh,
everything we could think
would
of.
love to have been at that table. That
And
sounds
that,
so
right?
fun.
Yeah. I would have sent you the list had we known each other back then. And then I grouped them into 5 different categories. And so basically, and so this is not super scientific. I mean, it's
I love it.
pseudoscientific,
I
but
love
so
it.
far people are like, yeah, I think this actually works. So the first one, I'll raise my hand, this is me, is the doer. This is the
Okay.
person with the to-do list. Go, 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 do, do, do. And as long as I'm busy and as long as I'm doing all this stuff, then there's no time for me to worry and be anxious. And then when I have downtime, I'm very
Ooh.
uncomfortable.
Mm.
That's the doer.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the opposite of the doer, which is the hider. And so this
Oh,
is the person who maybe is going to be more likely to avoid the social situation, who's going to go take a nap if they're feeling stressed. So it's kind of like overdoing versus underdoing as a way to
yeah,
avoid
that's good.
anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then there's the pulsive. And so the
Oh.
pulsive is the person who engages in either compulsive or impulsive behavior, skin picking, nail biting, OCD, like, compulsive
Mm-hmm.
tendencies, that kind of thing, eating, gambling, sex, these.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the thinker. This is the
Mm.
worrier, the
Oh,
catastrophizer, if I can think through every possible thing that might go
yeah.
wrong, then I'll be able to prevent bad things from happening. I got to
Yes.
overanalyze every single decision before I make the decision, that kind of thing. And then there's the otherer. And this is I'm just going to rely on everybody else to make the decisions. And most people do all of these at some point, but there's
I would say,
usually
yeah.
one that's kind of the
Dominant.
more prominent,
Mm-hmm.
dominant, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you take the quiz, it'll show you what percentage of each of
Oh, I
these
can't wait. This is so
you are. So
fun.
if people want to take that quiz, just go to jillstoddard.com/quizzes. And there's an imposter syndrome quiz. It's because
Okay.
there are these 5 subtypes of imposter. And then there's the 5 types of avoider.
We're there already.
And so
I'm
that
so good.
otherer is you choose the movie, you choose the restaurant. Because what if I pick it and everyone hates it and then they're mad at me?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's the reassurance seeking. Are we cool? Are you sure you
Yeah,
love
am I
me?
okay? Are you
Yeah, yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah, that was a
that kind of thing.
counterintuitive movement in my work of late, a couple years ago or whatever. It was like, I can't, I made myself, I can't ask the people in my life, are you okay? Are we okay?
Mm,
Are we okay?
yeah.
That has been the hardest thing in my life to accomplish, to go
Mm.
like,
Well, when I think of that, I would always ask the question, okay, well, what is this in the service of? If this is in the service of you reassurance seeking because you're anxious and it's damaging your relationship because they're like, oh my God, enough, stop asking if
yes.
I'm okay, then I agree, stop doing that. But there are ways to do that can also be values driven. Like if I'm sensing tension with someone I really
Mm,
care about, and I'm pretty clear that things aren't quite all right, or they're not okay because
hmm
they're acting distant or standoffish, then I can go to that person and say, hey, I'm really worried about you. I've noticed that you've been really quiet. You seem kind of shut
Oh,
down. Is there anything that you need? Is there anything
that's
that I can do?
beautiful. I'm so glad I
So
said
it's
that.
yeah. And so it's
Thank you.
not always this is good, this is bad. It's what is this in the service
Right.
of? And is it
Hmm.
values driven, or really is it just about me and my own discomfort and trying to get
Yeah.
comfortable in ways that probably tend to backfire over time?
Yeah. I don't want to brush over that. What is this in service of?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is just, it's part of your DNA, because you've been in this work for so long. But I
Right.
think,
That's true.
those of us who are newer and new to ACT, or this mode of making your way through life, right? It's, I'm not sure that I would ever stop even an hour ago and go, what is my depression in service of? What is this negativity coming out of my mouth in service of?
Mm-hmm.
Is this true to who I want to be in this moment? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, listen, I'm already activating the principles. You've made it so simple.
Yeah.
So thank,
You're right on the money.
but so
Yeah.
thank you. I mean, an hour ago, 2 hours ago, this all might be part of a jet lag, but I'm just been so negative and tired and exhausted. But it's like, I love the idea of it's almost, but you're not grabbing but it's like shaking yourself with a little like self-compassion. Like, wait a minute, girl,
Mm,
this is not serving who you want to be. You don't want to move through life like this.
mm-hmm.
Your word for the year is joy building, and here you are being all Nancy negative. I guess what I love is the self-talk. Is
Mm.
it safe? Is that even
Yeah,
part of
yeah,
an
sort of.
act?
Sure. I mean, I think you can say that in terms of because you're doing sort of an internal inventory, whatever
Yes.
you want to call it, self-talk
Whatever.
internally. It's like what matters to me? Who do I want to be in this moment? What am I
Yeah.
doing? Is that consistent with who
Yeah,
I
with
want
what
to
I
be in this
value.
moment?
Right.
Right. I do want to say, I think you just brought something up that
Hmm.
can get complicated. This can sound simple, and then you're like, well, wait, I don't want to be negative. My word for the year is
Joy
positivity or
building.
whatever you just said. Joy building. But also, you just told me a couple minutes ago that you really want to be authentic. And guess what?
Mm.
Our authentic self isn't joyful all the time.
No,
Right.
no.
So then you come into this place where it might feel like these things are competing a little bit. And again, it's
And they
how
are.
do I want to show up in this moment? And if
Hmm.
I really want to be authentic, then it may be that I explain to the people,
Hmm.
I know that I'm kind of negative today. I'm super jet lagged. I'm just tired and grumpy. It's temporary. I know I'll snap out of it soon. It's nothing personal, just in a funk
Ugh,
today.
it's so
That would be
good.
authentic,
It would be.
right? And it's and
Hmm.
as
And not the
opposed
pretender.
to
Right.
yes, and right. And that if you're like, oh well, I don't want to be, well, okay, you could also do your best to snap yourself out of it if you were like, you
Hmm.
know what? I really want to be someone who practices gratitude,
Yeah.
who doesn't focus on the little bit of negative when I know I have so many blessings. And so I'm going to choose
Hmm.
to really try to shift my perspective today so that
Hmm.
I can focus on those things because that's the kind of person I want to be in the world. So
Yeah.
both of those can be
Well,
values driven.
we always say that one of the biggest things in this community is you have to learn how to hold things in both hands. So joy and
Yes.
sorrow. So you would be saying we hold authenticity with reality, but then as I hold my hands and maybe shift my fingers and just knowing, okay, in this moment, I am exhausted, so it's making me negative. So I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get some rest. Go get some rest, Janelle. Be gentle with yourself. That's probably the most productive thing you could do. Uh,
Because the value I'm prioritizing is self care,
that's correct.
right? So that's, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's so helpful on so many levels for me, and I know for those listening, because we are in a society of productivity and, you
Yes.
know,
Oy.
oh, boy,
Right. And sometimes, like giving yourself permission to sit on the sofa in a cozy blanket and
yeah,
watch
get lost
mindless
in.
television. And maybe you're avoiding a party
Mhm,
to do that. And maybe
mhm,
you were anxious about the party and now you're not
mhm.
going to the party and you feel relief. And if you're being honest with yourself, you're avoiding the party.
Yes.
That's what is that in the service of? Avoidance. But can it also be in service of values? Yes. If you're saying, you know what, I've had the flu for the last week. I worked through the flu, or I've been working 60 hours a week. I am
Yes.
exhausted.
Hmm.
There aren't actually that many people at this party that I feel very close to that I'm like super
Yeah.
excited to see. Or these
Right.
are people I just saw last week, or I'm going to see again next
Yes.
week. And today I'm going to give myself permission to take care of
Hmm.
myself and rest and slow down.
I
But
love
what's
that.
important is you have to be really honest with yourself because you
Hmm.
could get sneaky and
Yeah,
that
yeah,
could
yeah.
be there could be a lot of rationalizing and justifying where
Oh,
all of a sudden
it's
you
all
seem
going
to
on in
be
my head.
avoiding, you seem to be doing a lot of self-care and not getting out into the world. I was doing air quotes. I don't know if you
Yeah,
release this on video,
I
but
do.
so you really do have to be honest with yourself, do that kind of
Yes.
inquiry about like,
Yeah.
all right, maybe this is
Yeah.
turning from self-care into avoidance and I'm making excuses and I need to
Yeah.
now put myself out there, even if it's hard for me to do
Even if
that.
it's a counterintuitive movement. I do a lot of
Yeah.
that. Like you were saying,
Yes.
the counterintuitive movement for you is to not keep your bills and your wallet organized because
Right.
that's your, ordered self. That would be my husband for sure. It's like loving order. But I really appreciate the concentration, I guess, or the emphasis that we're putting on recognizing the avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we have to always become aware first before any change can happen.
Absolutely.
But it's like almost I like to personify emotions and feelings and values or whatever. But I think personifying, oh, hi, avoidance. I see you. I recognize you. I understand that I'm being lured away into that world of avoidance again, just creating a little storyline for
Yes.
myself, or hi, sadness. I have sat on this floor behind me and had a really long conversation with sadness, capital
Yeah.
S, which is why
Yeah.
I love the Inside Out movies so much because they
Oh,
personify the
the best. The
emotions.
best. Well, you know what? In ACT, we would call this diffusion.
Oh,
And
tell us.
really, and
Okay, it
well,
has
and
a
it's
name.
it's more specific to thoughts, but if a diffusion, not like diffusing a bomb, DE
Correct.
fusion, it's a made up word that doesn't exist. So fusion is like when you're hooked by your thoughts, like Velcro. Diffusion is when you're unhooking, you're separating, you're looking at your thoughts. And there are lots of ways to do that. And one is doing this personification. So my inner critic, her name is Sheila. I don't know why. I just gave her that name many years ago. No offense to anyone listening named
It's
Sheila.
so
I don't even
cute.
know any Sheilas. I have nothing against Sheilas. And so what that looks like is like, when that inner critic gets loud, who do you think you are? You have nothing interesting to share. Da da da. I'm like, okay, Sheila, I hear you. I know
Mhm.
that you're trying to protect me from failure, humiliation,
Yeah.
rejection, whatever it is, but
Mhm.
I've got this. I've got this.
I can
And
handle
it is
this.
not suppression. Like it is not go away, Sheila. I have to push you down. One of my favorite
Right.
metaphors for that is like if you imagine being in a pool with like a floating beach ball
Oh, yeah.
and you try to stuff the beach ball under the water, it takes
Yes.
all of your energy and attention and effort. And you can do
Mhm.
it. You can do it, but you can't do anything else as long as you're
You
focused on
sure
that. And then what
can't.
happens 100% of the time? The ball poofs, and the further
Yeah,
you stuff it down, the further it comes up. So, this is a great metaphor for
it's
avoidance,
good.
whether it's trying to
Hmm.
suppress thoughts, whether it's trying to push down feelings, they're going to find their way back, and they might even be more powerful than they were when you
Typically,
pushed them
they
under the
are.
surface in the first.
Yeah, I would
Right. So,
say.
this idea of like, thank you, Sheila, I've got this is not go away, Sheila, I'm stuffing you down and
Mhm.
pretending you're not talking. It's like, you can be over here chattering away at
Yeah,
me,
we can
and
coexist.
we can coexist. You can even sit in the passenger seat of my car and
Mhm.
attempt to be my co-pilot, but I'm going to choose. I'm mixing a lot of metaphors here, but
I love
I'm going to
this.
I'm going to be the one with my hands on the wheel. I choose which way to
Hmm.
steer. I choose how fast to push the gas pedal or press the
Hmm.
brake pedal. You can say whatever you want. I'm not going to waste my time trying to shut you up, but
Yeah,
I'm going to be in charge of what I do or
yeah. We're
don't do.
driving the
My
bus. Like,
values.
yeah,
Right.
right. Another,
Yeah,
yeah. Emotions don't drive us. We drive them. It's like
exactly.
we're behind the wheel. And I think
Yep.
that is really important what you're trying to say to us today, particularly to me. I think I'm being very selfish. This is just really helping me so much.
Good. I'm glad. I hope. Well, the other thing I love
Ah,
about ACT is that, it's transdiagnostic. And I don't know about you, but when
mm.
I was in graduate school, it was like, here's the manual for trichotillomania, and here's the one for
Oh,
OCD, and
yes.
here's the one for depression. And like, how do you
Yes.
learn so many treatments
Bipolar,
for so many
borderline.
problems?
How do you?
And ACT is like, whether you have a diagnosis or not, doesn't matter. Whatever you come into
Mhm.
my office with today, my job is going to be to teach you how to cultivate psychological flexibility. And whether
Oh,
you're having relationship issues or mood issues or anxiety issues or
wow.
bodily
Yeah.
illness issues, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, as a therapist, it's
Hmm.
always hard to learn a new therapy if you didn't get it while you were in
Hmm.
training.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is one that's like really worth exploring because there's no right or
Mhm.
wrong way to do it as long
Right.
as you're cultivating psychological flexibility and you can apply it to whatever is going on
Yeah.
for the person showing up. And like, how often does someone show up in your office with like one issue?
Oh,
Never.
never. Never.
Right? There's always a
No.
million things going on and
Especially
they
dealing
change from
with
week to
trauma. I
week.
mean, in most,
Yes.
I would say most cases would, under all of it, come to some form of childhood trauma or childhood origin or family of origin, the little t, middle t, big T. And it's
Mhm.
just, and what is trauma? The best definition I ever heard is just, the feelings are too big for my body. So what you're
Mhm.
telling us here today is, the feelings are going to be big, big emotions. I have two
Yeah.
toddler grandchildren, big emotion,
Big. Mm.
huge. But it's like, okay, okay, take a deep breath, put both your hands over your heart. you know, and giving them some skill. Okay, before we go,
Right.
Miss Jill, before we go, you write these words. To be clear, I love this. Now that I have your face in front of me and your
My
body,
voice.
I can see it in your voice. Like, to be clear, the purpose of mindfulness is not to change an experience from extremely unpleasant to less unpleasant. That just happens to be a nice byproduct. This is in your chapter, completely given to mindfulness, which is one of my passions. Cultivating mindfulness means greater awareness of internal experiences in the absence of judgment. That was the hardest thing for me to learn. Or letting go of judgments each time they arise, which threatens to steer us away from living our best lives, or as you have taught us, to be true to our truest self. Greater, and here's where you're talking about the detonator and the bomb, that metaphor. Greater awareness creates space between detonator, internal experiences, and bomb, impulsive reactions. In that space, bombs can be deactivated through acceptance, the defusion you just told us about, our contact with values, and deliberate choice in service of those values. And so that's the context and the basis of ACT. Just a few minutes on mindfulness and how we can cultivate that in a way with ACT in order to perhaps move through our lives with a little more ease.
Yeah.
I think that's my goal.
There are many, many ways. And I think what's important is people find the way that really works best for them.
Yeah.
I am not a sit on a cushion for 45 minutes and meditate person. Like, that's just not the way I'm going to do mindfulness. For people who love that and can do that, great. There's loads of research that shows the benefits of doing that. For me, I do more like mini mindfulness throughout my day.
Love this.
Which is just using my senses to pay attention. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I taste, touch? Those kinds of things. Your five senses. And, it's really just about trying to get more present. And as you practice being more present with your senses, which is a little bit easier, then you can also start to practice getting more aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your sensations, your urges.
Yeah.
And these days when I do ACT, I very rarely, in fact, I would pretty much at this point say really never separate willingness and mindfulness. I practice mindful willingness. So really it's about, and I'm sorry, willingness and acceptance are interchangeable. They're synonyms with each other. So mindful acceptance.
Yeah.
And so when we did that exercise with the hand holding, that was mindfulness. But it was also practicing acceptance of the discomfort.
Yeah.
Because you can do anything mindfully. You can shave your legs mindfully. So when I shave my legs, I never do it like in the order I want to do it. I start in the back and then I go out of order because it's wrong and I hate it.
You are rocking my boat.
Right? And then you're practicing mindfulness and willingness at the same time. I mean, so you can I just had this aha moment in this second. I might be outing myself as the go, 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 doer. Because I'm like, why just do mindfulness or do willingness when you can do both at the same time?
So just high function it.
Healthy multitasking. That's what we'll call it. We're combining two practices at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to end. I want your advice on how to apply ACT to a young mama, because we are devoting ourselves to mothering, the mothering of all ages, mothering for all the ages. Okay. She is in bedtime with a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And the 2.5-year-old is jumping off the walls, not listening, not obeying. Okay. Can I apply ACT to that in that moment?
You absolutely can. So I'm glad you asked this question. And by the way, I had a 2.5-year-old who was a bouncer off the walls, or up until he was probably 7.
Wow. Yeah.
He's still a very wiggly dude, but he doesn't almost die on a daily basis like he did when he was that age. So my heart goes out to her. It is very
challenging,
tiring,
exhausting,
head on a swivel, exhausting. This makes me think of a point that I didn't make, which is when we're talking about acceptance and willingness in the context of ACT, we're really talking about acceptance of your internal experiences. Now, I don't know if you guys have talked much about DBT on your podcast, dialectical behavior therapy, just a little. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in DBT, Marsha Linehan talks about radical acceptance, and that's really about acceptance of reality. So maybe you were abused as a child. It doesn't
Oh.
mean it's okay. It doesn't mean you're forgiving your abuser. It
Mhm.
means you're simply accepting that this was my reality, because what other
Mhm.
choice do I have but to
Correct.
accept that this was my reality? Okay.
Mhm.
So I think that can be applied when we're talking about mothering very difficult or busy toddlers.
Yes.
Radical acceptance.
Yes.
This is my reality right now. It
Mm.
won't be this way forever.
No.
But this is just par for the course when you are a parent of children this age. It is very difficult. It is
Mhm.
what it is. That's kind of how I would say we would practice acceptance of the external. In
Mhm.
ACT, we're talking about acceptance of the internal.
That's so
So
good.
it's whatever this little baby boy or girl,
It's a girl.
to girl, whatever this baby girl is triggering in mom,
Yeah.
impatience or anxiety or dread or whatever it is.
Dread is a good word.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like noticing,
Mhm.
making space. So I just use breath to make space, because when you inhale,
Ah,
you literally expand your chest, right? So you
you
can
do.
kind of, there's an exercise. I don't know if it's in Be Mighty. I think it is, but it's
I'll
essentially
check it
like
out.
imagining that your discomfort, if you could imagine, like notice in your body where you feel what you're feeling when the kid is being
Mhm.
active, right? And then imagine you can reach in and pull it out, and it takes shape. So the first time I ever did this with my own anxiety, it looked like those steel
Oh.
wool pads,
Oh
but it was
yeah.
vibrating. That's what mine
Oh
was.
wow.
Right. So, like, what's the shape? Okay. Then
Super good.
invite it back into your body. Notice the resistance, because you're going to go, no, I don't want to
I
have
don't
it
want a
back.
stilly wool pad in my.
And right. And then you breathe. As you inhale, you expand, you make space, you open, you allow. As you exhale, you're exhaling resistance. So you're not exhaling the
Mhm.
anxiety,
Oh,
dread,
it's so good.
discomfort.
Hmm.
You're exhaling the resistance, which is why I do the invite it back in, so you know what resistance feels like.
Yeah.
That might also mean letting your shoulders drop, your
Hmm.
face smooth out, right? Because we hold
Hmm.
resistance in our bodies too.
Hmm.
So you're inhaling to make space, open, allow the discomfort to just be, because it's already here. Acceptance just
Yes.
means you're accepting something that's already here anyway.
Hmm. You're
Because
not
the more you
resisting
try
it.
to
You're not
shove it
avoiding.
away,
Yes.
the more you resist and avoid, the bigger it tends to come back, the
Hmm.
worse it tends to be. The more you don't get
Yeah.
to be a human without pain, and you sure as heck don't get to be a parent of toddlers without
You
pain.
sure don't.
But suffering is optional. And the resistance part is, I mean, I shouldn't say suffering, resistance is optional. And if you can
Resistance. Yes.
turn down the dial on resistance, you turn down the dial on suffering. And one
Yeah.
of the ways we do that is to practice this open, allow, breathe, let go. And that's not going to make these moments pain
Mm-mm.
free,
No.
but it will make it so that you suffer less in them.
Yeah. Because you say what we resist persist.
Yes. And that's
Yeah.
not mine. Somebody else said that, and
Yeah.
I don't remember who, but
It's okay. Yeah.
Young or somebody. I forget who
Somebody
gets credit for
wise.
that one. But yes, somebody very wise many, many years ago said,
But
what we resist
you
persists.
reminded us, and that
Yes.
is so important.
It's allowing whatever the discomfort is, but letting go of the resistance. This is uncomfortable, but it's
Mhm.
just a feeling. It's temporary. It's not dangerous, and I can handle it.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
That's our lean in
And
moment today.
that's a way to facilitate changing your relationship
I
to your
really like
internal
that.
experiences.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's very simple and rhythmic almost,
Yeah.
so a good thing to memorize and therefore put into practice with a whole bunch of self-compassion. It also releases the pressure from high functioning. If I hear you right, like it's a lot of times those of us who are type A's or high, perfectionist, all of
Yeah.
those things. We should be the perfect mother in that moment. No, this is
Yes.
a very uncomfortable situation. I hate being here, but then walk through those five things. I think that's beautiful.
Absolutely. And, high functioning is not a problem if there's no
Hmm.
cost. But a lot
Hmm.
of time, high functioning is perfectionism,
Hmm.
burnout, et cetera,
Yep.
et cetera. And so in that case,
Hmm.
that's what we want to really keep a keen eye on. And, where can I let go? Where can I let my standards, You can have high standards without having perfectionistic standards. And
Wow.
can you get clear on your value? And this is a quick podcast. It makes it sound like,
Yes.
oh, just figure out your values. There are so many different ways to
Yeah.
figure out values. And I'll tell you what, I never sit with a client and go, so what do you value? Because it doesn't work. They'll like look at you like a deer in headlights. I wouldn't know how to answer that question either.
No.
And so that's, the other thing, my first book, The Big Book of ACT Metaphors, is for therapists. So if people want metaphors and experiential exercises and actual scripts to start doing some ACT type exercises, that is there. And then both Be Mighty and Imposter No More also have lots of exercises for, they're self-help books, but for readers.
Oh, they're very prescriptive. I love them.
They're prescriptive. So you'll be walked through to identify your values, to practice willingness. Like we're doing this so fast, right?
Oh, I know. Trust me, I know.
There.
And everybody just take an exhale, because it's not A plus B equals C. It's, we know here that heart work is hard work. And
Oh, I love that.
Well, it's
I've
true.
Never heard that. That's great.
It's in one of my books, but
yes, exactly.
Hard work is hard work. And so we have to have the patience and the endurance to continue on. Jill, please come back.
Definitely.
You're just such a good teacher.
Anytime.
You're just such a good teacher. Your book is so practical. It's who I am too. I like to just have nuts and bolts and break it down. And I feel like I'm now that I have your face and all your body posture thing, all of these, man, I love them.
Now you can hear my voice.
Yeah, I can hear your voice when I almost heard it before I met you, because it's so kind and clear. And so thank you. Thank you.
Well, it's funny that Be Mighty and Imposter No More are both audiobooks too.
Perfect.
I don't read Be Mighty.
I didn't get to do mine. I don't like that. I know.
It sounds very weird to have someone else reading your words the way you wouldn't read them, but I did get to read Imposter No More. So that is
great.
Me reading the book, and that was a really fun experience.
Yeah, I think as an author, I will put that in any contract in the future, because I had so many people say, I want to hear you talk to me.
Same.
Yep. So, yeah.
Totally.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Janelle. This was great.
Oh my gosh, it was an honor, and we would love to have you back to talk about imposter and avoidance, because
anytime.
Boy, don't we all need that. Thank you. Have the best year of your life, Jill.
I will try. You too.
Oh, Heartlifter. One of the most important things I really learned from Jill is when she spoke of countering avoidance. Remember, what we resist will persist. So she's helping us to cultivate might through mindfulness, utilizing acceptance and commitment therapy, and developing a bring it on relationship with whatever internal experiences, which are our thoughts, emotions, and sensations. 3 things. Our thoughts, what are we thinking about this specific situation right in this minute? What emotions are rising to the surface? And what sensations am I feeling in my body? That's embodiment. Thoughts, emotions, sensations happen to come our way. As we develop and cultivate this might through mindfulness, bring it on, we will stop avoiding, and for me, stop repressing, and then gain some agency. We talk about that a lot, our personal agency and our autonomy to use our voice and speak with healthy assertiveness. If you need some reminders on all of those, go back to the earlier podcast. I will list them in the show notes. That will help us become psychologically flexible. Wow. I am just giving this a standing O, and am so excited that we had this conversation with Jill. We will have her back to talk about imposter syndrome. Please, any questions you have, will you meet me at Heartlift Central on Substack, over on Today's Heartlift with Janelle on Facebook, and then Instagram at Janelle Reardon. I'm giving you lots of ways to connect, and boy, do I really want to connect with you. Until next time.